Right, hello. I'm going to introduce you to two new charts. Here I am. I'm on the old, the old double cross of Lorraine chart. If you watch the channel regularly, you know I use this quite a bit in my decodes. If you're new here, you probably want to go and check this video out. Okay, that explains this particular chart. But the reason why I'm on this chart right now, even though I'm going to introduce you to two new charts, is for a little bit of kind of explanation of the thought process, or I guess from where, what the journey was. So, context, I guess, I don't know. So this is a chart that I compiled quite some time ago, and I've been using it in my decodes quite a bit, and there is some interesting bits and bobs in here, and some interesting things that have sort of cropped up from this chart. Okay, I'm going to show you another variation of it in just 1 second. But what we basically have here is this is a chart of Fibonacci type numbers. So here is our row of Fibonacci numbers right here. Okay, above that is just the standard bog standard number line, right? Okay, then Fibonacci, or Fibonacci, however you want to say it. Then we go to Lucas numbers, which is just basically Fibonacci, except we start on 2, then we add the 1, that generates the 3, and then we add the 3 back to the 1, which generates the 4, and so forth and so on, as you do the same procedure with Fibonacci, So Lucas numbers are a known set of numbers out in the mathematical world. But what I have here is a row that I added in myself. I'm sure this probably, I'm guessing this probably does exist somewhere in the mathematical world. I'm sure all these exist in the mathematical world somewhere, but I haven't come across them. Anyway, this is just what I made up. I called it pi numbers because it starts 314, and this is just another sequence, of the same style as Fibonacci, except starting on 3, and then we have starting on 5 as well, which I'd called phi because it's 5, and the 1 and the 6, like the golden ratio, phi, which is 1.618, yada yada yada. Anyway, so what we end up with is a table of numbers where we can pick out different patterns, right? And so, as you can tell, I've color coordinated some of this stuff, or color coded, however you want to say that. And I've also got these totals down the bottom in green here for each column. Okay, and you can see what's interesting about the two columns I've got labeled here, which is metaphysical and physical, is the number 55 and the number 88 showing up in there, which is, you start thinking about Back to the Future when you see 55 and 88. Okay, again, there's other things in here, like there is a total here at the number 10 mark. Okay, so these grays right here, this is not part of the sequence right here. This is the total for actually this, and this all added up, and that gives you that total there. So the backdrop is I've been picking out some interesting stuff out of here, decoding from this for quite some time now, right? And so obviously one of the big things that I've picked out of here is this idea that, here's one of the twin towers and here's the other twin tower, and in fact Tower 7 is in here as well. It's the tower that balances these two main towers. Okay, so there's lots of different sort of symbols that we can put in here, and I want to show you one really quickly. I know this is like going over old stuff for people that, for the half a dozen people that watch this, I apologize, watch the channel regular, but I think it's worth going over this just to sort of add some kind of, like, how these connections are working, right? So don't save, for goodness sake. Okay. Oh no, chart 4. I don't want this 4 in here. Hang on. That's a mistake again already. I want the one with the clock tower. Okay. So here was another symbol that I'd put in here at some point in time, and this is the clock tower from Back to the Future. Okay. Now, you might say, well, why are you saying that is the clock tower from Back to the Future? Well, if you remember, the actual clock in Back to the Future was on 10:04, and so the numerology for 10:04 is 1-4, and we have a 14 here, so 1 and 4. Okay, so that led me to put this upward triangle in here that is like the clock tower itself, and lo and behold, certain things start popping out. Like if you were to stylize this 55 up here, so if we, oh, come on, let's just draw it a little bit better than that, Dan. So if we do 1-5 like this, okay, and then we do another 5, okay, you can see what we end up with is a lightning strike hitting the top of the clock tower, and the lightning follows the path in the movie, which is right over the 9/11 here. Okay, so you can see it starts getting interesting with Back to the Future, this sort of stuff. Okay, and there's other things in here that link to, I don't know how to explain it, but just there's so many different links. Again, back to the previous video, which was about the dollar bill and that dollar bill decode. This 155, which you can also pick out of here. If you just took one of these ones from this 11, this 155 super important with getting to 49 in that decode, okay, from 9/11. So, and also the 55 ties into that as well, because 55 days is from 213 over to 49, okay, and we kind of got 49 in here as well. It's not a very good one, but it's kind of there. And we also kind of have that other date, which was the 19th of May as well, tied into this here. So, it's interesting that you can kind of put different shapes and symbols in here and get certain numbers indicated from it. Okay, so without, I just want to give a bit of a sort of a teaser for people that are familiar with Back to the Future mainly, because we're going to go and look at these next two charts, and it's kind of interesting what's in the middle of one of them. But that's kind of the backdrop, that these are all sort of Fibonacci numbers which encode the golden ratio, which we find everywhere in nature. Okay, so it's a natural balancing number within nature. So where to go from here? Recently I've been talking about kind of reducing some of these numbers, like the Fibonacci and Lucas, and doing different kinds of number, and starting with different numbers in sequences as well. But the idea of reducing the Fibonacci sequence, which I saw on Lambda 115's channel, was kind of like eye-opening for me, because although I believe I've seen it before on Numberphile, he had it set up in such a way. What was genius about the way he'd shown it was this cycle that he showed was it was the reduction of Fibonacci, and it was showing where it restarts happens to be the last number in the sequence happens to be 9, and then it restarts again with 1 1. Okay, so Fibonacci encodes 911. Okay, and he had it set up in such a way though that it made a lot more sense to me than just having seen it on Numberphile many years ago and not really putting 2 and 2 together. You know, these things are right there, and it takes somebody with a good eye to put the stuff together. And he simply just put made a circle for the cycle, and then had a start and a stop, and he had the 9 here and the 11 here, and then everything else going around. Okay, so a big hand to Lambda for doing that, but it got me thinking about doing another table basically, and using just root numbers basically for all these cycles here. Okay, and actually including every single cycle from basically 1 to 10. Okay, so here we've just got like a couple of different cycles. What we have is we have a repeat pattern down here as what we see in the start of Fibonacci here. Okay, so there's a kind of funny symmetry with the table, but what I wanted to do was compile a table that was a little bit more symmetrical. Okay, so I'll show you what I came up with. I know that's a long convoluted way to get there, but I think it's important to know that we're dealing with really big numbers here, and now we're going to see like how certain numbers are actually kind of connected at the root as well. Some of these sequences are actually connected at the root. So we're going to start with, I think I'll start with the Queen's Cross first. Okay, here we are, we're at the Queen's Cross. Okay, and I will go and I will show you the King's Cross next. But what we have here is basically we've got the regular number line here at the top, and then basically what we have is and this goes up to number 24, okay, because what we have is we have Fibonacci numbers reduced, yeah, down to the individual root component of each number. And what this means is after 24 numbers within the line, if you do the reduced number line here, it repeats over again. So every 24 digits, the pattern repeats over, which is kind of fascinating to say the least. Well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to start with Fibonacci and then go to 2, as we see here. So we're starting with 1. I've got rid of the 0 out of here, and I've kind of aligned everything up just where it made sense, basically. And so I've got all the 1s in a row here. So we're going, we're starting with 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. And we're doing the Fibonacci sequence up here. And then we're going to Lucas. And we're doing that same idea. And what we're doing is we're starting a sequence on, the next number up the chain, right? So we're starting on 1, then we're going to 2, then we're going to 3, then we're going to 4, then we're going to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's it. Because once we get to 10, we're back to the start again. The reason being that because these are all reduced, if you reduce 10, you're back to 1, okay? And 1 plus 1 is going to be back to Fibonacci, okay? So this is where we get up to, as you can see. And what I've done is I've picked out, because we're going through, well, basically I've started at the beginning where 1 would be. What we end up with is right here, this is the middle, this is the balance point, right? And so, in fact, we actually have 2 balance points. We have here and the beginning and the end, somewhere in between the beginning and the end here. So there's the end, there's the beginning, and somewhere on either side of these is the is the midpoint there, and here's the midpoint of the actual cycle here as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're going to have two midpoints because you've got a start and a stop, and opposite the start and the stop is the point of where we're at now. Okay, which means we can build the table two different ways. We can put the start and the stop in the middle, and we can just do it like this as well. So I could rearrange this table, which is what I'm going to show in a minute, with the king's cross, where the beginning and end is in the middle and everything rotates around onto it. Okay, so but what we're doing here is we're just starting off and going in in an increasing sequence. I don't know what word you want to say. You know, we're just going in the regular number line, right? So hopefully this is making sense right now. What we end up with is we end up with all the added in ones aligning, which is kind of nice. And then what we'll find is that within this sequence, okay, there is a point where we have everything basically boils down to a number 9. Okay, that's what I need to point that out, right? Everything will boil down to a number 9 at some point. And there's several hours of talking about this table. But because everything boils down to a number 9, and because this is like a clock in essence, right? It's a cycle, so it's like a clock. And what you'll notice is this goes up to 12, and then it's like the 24-hour clock. So 13 goes with 1. Okay, 14 goes with 2. And if you notice, what's interesting about this, 14 with 2, again with the Queen, with her birthday, 421, and with also with if I get my thoughts together here, with Valentine's Day, with 214. This is special in this table because this is 1 and 8 coming together. Okay, pretty special. That number 18, again, it's a number that I waffle on about quite a bit, but anyway, what we've got is we've basically got some interesting numbers that pop up here. So we've got all these cycles reduced. So the first key thing to note is that when I did these other 3 cycles, I found that they too have that they all fit together. This is part of the reason why I made the table, is because, wow, you know, when I did the reductions for Lucas, I found that they also had 24 digits in a cycle. And then when I did pi, I found, oh, they also have 24 digits in a cycle. Yeah, so I could compile these 3 together, and I thought, well, what about doing all the other ones, you know, because I use this number 5 in my chart of Lorraine, and I've actually got a chart of Lorraine with some scribbled in stuff for this 4 row as well here. So, you know, that just led me to do this whole chart like this, basically. And what I found is that actually there's only 3 actual what I want to say is there's actually only 3 cycles. There's only Fibonacci, as I've got this F over at the far end here, Lucas and pi. And then what you find is, as you go down, this 415 start digits is actually part of Fibonacci. It's just Fibonacci started in a different spot. Okay, so if we went up to Fibonacci now, we could find 415 right here. Okay, and then it loops around on itself. So that is, you know, this spot right here that I'm showing you, you know, and then the rest of it is. So if that makes sense to you, these I've got them listed here as what those cycles actually are after those first 3. So, you know, what is interesting is that the middle cycle is pi. Okay, that's the thing that's right in the middle of it all. Okay, and again, you could, I look at these three, the F for Fibonacci is like the first, it's almost like God, the Father, and pi, with the representation of the dam and everything else, it's a bit like the mother, and then Lucas numbers is a bit like the son, I guess. So what you end up with is the Holy Trinity, so to speak, or a Trinity of some description. So, but this is interesting with these numbers in the middle here. So that's the middle of the table is pi, but it's lopsided, as you can see, because then it goes Lucas, Fibonacci, Fibonacci, Fibonacci for the N3 there. So it's kind of it's interesting anyway that what we have is a repeat pattern going on with these other things as well. Now, as you can see, lots of interesting stuff going on, and when I'm looking at these numbers with the Queen's Cross, is I'm kind of looking more lopsided like this at 3 numbers here, and I'm kind of not worrying about the 8 running down here so much. Okay, so I'm kind of looking, and this will make more sense when we go to the King's Cross here in a minute. Okay, so with the Queens, we're looking at stuff lopsided one way more so, and this is why I have slightly different colors here to kind of help us distinguish between the numbers, right? But anyway, you can see here 8-9 or 9-8 is the Queen's death date. Okay, so that's kind of interesting straight off the bat, and this is kind of the main reason why I called it the Queen's Cross. And again, we have those same numbers down the bottom here. Okay, in fact, with the 8-9, let's just do 2 because it's easier to see. So we have that on both ends of the feet and the head here, right? Then what we have over here is, again, 5-1 and 5-9 or 9-5. Okay, on the hands. We have 4-4 in the middle, so I'm thinking that 4-4 might be an interesting date. I'm going to be doing I'll probably do a Madonna thing on it if she doesn't croak before then. I think 2/29 will be my next Madonna video for the 29th. It was one that Journeyman had mentioned, and I thought, well, I'm going to probably end up doing a video on that anyway, so I'll do it. And then I've got about 3 or 4 more dates before we even get into April that look interesting as well. So, but this is kind of an interesting number here right in the center. But we can look down here and we can see other instances of the Queen, or the metaphysical, or the feminine side of nature, like with this 17 here. If you think to Diana, her birthday is the 1st of July, and I think she was born, actually, I want to say she was born in 61, maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it was 61. And again, if you come down to the next one, what's 2-6, Dan? What are you going to give me for 2-6? Well, I just recently was talking about Marilyn Monroe, and 2-6, especially as you look at the reflected side of this chart, 2-6 reflects with the 6-2 there, and Marilyn Monroe was born in 1926 and dies in 1962. And actually, coincidentally, if we were to look at either side of this, I want to say she's born on the 5th of August as well. So Or did she die on the 5th of August? I can't remember now. But anyway, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? So you've got stuff that ties to, I don't know, the feminine side of the story. Here, right at the top here, let's look at this. 1213 is the middle point. Yeah, is the balance point. Again, Taylor Swift's birthday, 1213. Kind of interesting. If we look over on the corners of this table, okay, what we have is we have the 122, the 112. Okay, I apologize if I say my numbers around the wrong way or whatever, but you know what I mean. Here is the Super Bowl. Down here we've got 9/11 on this bottom corner. Over here we've got, well, you could say that was Matthew Perry's or Madonna's birthday flipped around. Okay, and again, the interesting thing there was with that and Matthew Perry again was the 28th of October here, and there's other people that have shared that date with. I've seen it several times with other people. Okay, a couple of other interesting things that tie in. If we go down on the corner now, the 1, 2, 3 here, obviously we're going to have a 1, 2, 3 there, but that doesn't necessarily show up there in the other tables. And we have a 3 and a 3, 2, 1 there on the opposite corner, which is like that special number jump that ties 9/11 with the Hoover Dam. Okay, and then up here we have another tie-in with maybe 8/9 and 8/7, which again I kind of like, with the idea of the Queen and the 8/7 there. Kind of, I keep thinking about Travis Kelce out of the Chiefs with the 8/7 right now with Taylor Swift, you know, which is right above, you know what I mean, right above the Queen here. So this is, you know, it's just interesting stuff that's in here. But let's go to the middle of the thing now. So we said the 4 4s in the middle. Oh, also as you get towards the middle, the 35, which is mirrored with the 53, but the 35 again is basically like the it's the year that the Hoover Dam was born, basically. Okay, so that again is super interesting. But we want to look at these middle numbers here, because I think you can probably see it now a little clearer. 9 4 and 4 8. Okay, and so that last video when I was talking about the Hoover Dam date that was in the dollar bill, along with the 519, which we see over on the hands here. What we see at the heart on the Queen's Cross is, yeah, the eclipse to do with the moon. Okay, and then what I think 49 is going to be to do with the dam, and the dam is the, what is the pi? It is the feminine. Yeah, I mean, if we look at the actual numbers of pi here, I've got the actual number of pi, and you know, obviously, if we just look at the first two numbers here and call that 31 a 13, we've got M, we've got 4 is D, and we've got 1 is A. Okay. Now, you know, this is why I kind of like the idea of a 314 number, like Pi Day coming up with Albert Einstein's birthday for Madonna's death. Again, because Madonna, yeah, is all right there with, she's even got the dam right there, just reversed. But, you know, those numbers spell out dam. Okay, just rearrange that. Okay, so this is important. You know, and this is why I'm like, you know, 9-4 looks promising for the dam, not to mention all the other references back to 9-4 to the 4th of September with the Labor Day thing. I mean, it's just mental. And of course, you know, 55 days from 213 ought to take you through to that day there as well. I don't think I mentioned that in the last video, but that is that special thing with the 155 and then another 155, okay, and then another 55-day jump. Those all tie together, okay, to complete a full year. Obviously, we've got an extra day this year, which I was kind of umming and ahhing about how that works out. But anyway, because you kind of have to fudge it backwards and forwards between a normal year and a leap year. But anyway, we're not worrying about that now, and I'm kind of getting sidetracked. So I kind of want to leave it here for this table, right? But what I do want to say, one more little thing is, if you remember that the dollar bill fold, that last one we just did, I want to point out, and what do I want to point out? I want to point out the number, right? So hang on a minute, let's just draw this. So we had 9-4 was the D. So let's draw a D around this 9-4 here, okay? And then what we had was some leaves and berries that counted up, yeah? And the numbers that we had are right here, okay? Which I find completely fascinating, that it was 400. Actually, I said it around the other way. I said it was 485. But it depends on how you want to read the number, because basically we just had the number 4 with the 4 leaves at the one end, and then we had 5 berries and 8 leaves in the middle. So this was kind of, you know, this is kind of really mental, really. And then at the far end we had, yeah, this, or in fact you could actually say it was this. You could just flip that around. Actually, that 516 could flip around, or you could borrow it off of this end as well. I don't really care where you get it from, but the numbers are there. So that was interesting. I'm going to leave it there for this part of the decode, and we're going to go look at the King's Cross next. But I think I'll just break this into another video. So if you've just watched this one, what we'll do is we might flip backwards and forwards between the charts in the next one, okay? So stay tuned for the King's Cross next, okay? Alright, thanks for watching this one, and I'll catch you on another one here real soon. Alright, cheers, bye.